G'day people, I'm Sharyn. Today I'm going to stitch out my design 003 on Janome's Skyline S9, which is known as the Atelier 9 in the United Kingdom and Ireland. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to attach the embroidery carriage to the machine. Then we will get through a few of the screens before we get to the actual stitching. You might want to skip ahead to get to that if you're not interested in how this particular machine works. To attach the embroidery arm, which is this piece here, to the Skyline S9, I need to line up this dot with the dot that is on the machine. I move it over there so it's all in a line and then push the whole thing in until it comes to a halt. At that point, my machine is actually not on at the moment. I'm going to press down on this side, right hand side. There is a lever in the embroidery arm. I press that down and that releases the arm, which can come out and slots into place. I need to make sure that this arm is not being impeded in either direction sideways. This is the bit that's going to move out and in to move the hoop. This whole arm is going to move left and right. So I don't need to worry about anything coming beyond the end of this arm, but I do need to make sure that there is room for that whole arm to shift left and right. The machine is not on at the moment. It doesn't actually like having these arms. None of the embroidery machines like having these arms attached while they are on. So the machine is actually off. When I go to take this off, push down on that same button, which allows me to move the embroidery arm in. Then on the left end, there is a white button near the machine. Back here, I know you're going to have trouble seeing what I'm doing. It's got some lines on it. It gets pressed in, and while that's in, I need to press the whole unit out to the left. And that's how I attach and detach the embroidery arm on this machine. To give you a better idea of how I move from one design to the next one without wasting quite so much fabric, I've got one laid up here ready to be cut off, and I put my 1/4 inch line just inside the outside seam line and cut it. The next design that I am going to stitch out, I'm doing on the Janome Skyline S9. Thank you so much to my friend Velma, who has loaned me her machine. So I've just picked up what I've cut off from the previous design. Put the fabric in here, and you can see this one actually requires more fabric side to side than my previous machine did. Put in the inside hoop, the inner hoop, and once again, finger tighten. Don't tighten them with screwdrivers. All you do is cross thread the screws. Then place in the wadding and the top fabric. Now this particular machine actually has a 14 by 14 hoop, 14 centimeter, 140 millimeter by 140 millimeter hoop. So this one I don't need to move the design around in order to stitch it out. In this photo you can see that I'm in regular sewing mode. I've already got the arm attached at the back and we're ready to move on to moving into embroidery mode. At this point, I press the button that has got the 2 sewing machines on it. It's a toggle key, but don't toggle it too fast because your machine is moving from regular sewing mode into embroidery mode. This is the screen you get if you have asked the machine to go into embroidery mode, but the embroidery arm is not open. You can go into embroidery mode and work things out in the edit screen. What you can't do is actually sew anything. This is what happens if you put the machine into embroidery mode when the arm is open. It's checking, Are you sure you want to switch to embroidery mode? Yes, I do. So I'm going to press OK. Once you're in embroidery mode proper, you're going to find yourself in the home embroidery screen. You would get to this screen if you were in embroidery and you pushed the little house at the top as well. It's the home screen. Because I'm not planning on stitching out any of the designs that are built into the machine, I actually want to get one out of a folder. So on the right hand side you can see an arrow coming out of a folder. That's where we need to go next. The default screen that you get into when you're opening folders is folders that are in the machine, so a design that has been saved by you into your machine. We actually want to go and look at designs that are on the USB stick, so we need to touch the tab at the top that shows a USB. Now I'm looking at folders that are on the USB stick. The machine has dumped me into the EMB folder. When you format your USB using the machine, it puts the EMB folder in and it puts the EMBF folder inside of it. And that's where it always goes looking for things. I have put the 14 centimeter folder next to the EMBF folder, and that's why I can find it here. When I go inside the 14 centimeter folder, I find myself with all the designs that I've put in there. One of the things to remember is if you've got two different sizes of designs, for example, something that would fit in the 14 centimeter hoop and something else that would fit in the 20 centimeter hoop, they won't show up on the same page. So it's important, if you're looking for something in a bigger size hoop, that you scroll to the right and then you should find what you're looking for. If you put any designs in there that your machine can't stitch out because they're too big, you won't see them. The machines do not show designs that they can't stitch out. When you click on the actual design you want, in this case design number 003, the machine will give you a warning screen, and the warning is to make sure you've got the right sized hoop on. If you put a design that's for 20 centimeters and you've got the 14 centimeter hoop in there, you don't want to hear what your machine is going to do. The Ready to Sew screen gives you information about what hoop you're supposed to be using, what size the design is going to be, how many colours are in it, how long it's going to take to stitch out, and what speed it's planning to stitch it out at. You can change the speed by moving your speed limiter button that is above the harp space of the machine. One of the things that I did before I started this, I set the machine in the settings for embroidery to 1 stitch stop, and I'm going to show you what that means now. So the foot is on the electronic part of the foot. The machine will do that itself. If I press start, it will go to the beginning of the design. It does 1 stitch and stops. Now in my Memorycraft 10,000 I had to manually stop it to get that thread through. Here the machine does it for me, and this stops me from needing to do actually trying to start it and stop it very quickly so that I can pull the bobbin thread up. So there's my bobbin thread and my top thread. There's no nest happened of thread on the back. Like I did with the other machine, I'm babysitting it as it does this first row of stitches, because this row of stitches is what's joining the wadding and the top fabric to the backing fabric. Now it's just done. It's cut off because this machine's got a cutter in it, and I've got it set to 1 stitch stop. So it's come over here. Hopefully it'll do 1. Yep. So it's allowing me each time it starts sewing to pull my bobbin thread up. Huge thanks to my friend Velma, who has loaned me her machine for these tutorials. So the design is finished. And we'll trim off the couple of threads that I didn't manage to do while I was sewing, and then detach the hoop from the machine, and we can go and cut it out. So there's our finished design. I'll pop it out of the hoop. So there's my design 003. You may notice that some of the stippling gets very close to, and sometimes it even goes slightly past the outside square, and that's because after that square was sewn, the amount of stitching in here actually pulled the design in a bit, and then it went over that. It doesn't matter for these designs, they're so lightly sewn that that little bit really doesn't matter. As previously, I've got the ruler 1/4 inch line just inside. Cut this one out. Always cutting away from you. You don't ever want to cut towards yourself. And it's also preferable not to do jaggy things like this, because you'll end up with jaggy lines. You want to put some pressure on it and go past once. Sometimes you have to do it a second time if the first time wasn't enough. Now, that's the design that was sewn on the previous machine, design number 002. This is design number 003, and you can see they match up. Even though they were done in different hoops on different machines, these designs match up. So there's my two designs. We need to start joining them up, don't we? So that you know how to put things together, quilt as you go as well. See you next time.